Okay, picture this. You can almost hear it, right? The buzz in the air, maybe some ancient instrument starting up, huge crowds gathering along this brand new wall, just ready to celebrate.
Oh, absolutely. A massive moment. You can feel the energy even just reading about it.
And it's all laid out in really surprising detail in Nehemiah chapter 12.
That's the one, a chapter that, yeah, looks like lists at first glance, but there's so much more there.
Exactly. So today, that's what we're doing, a deep dive into Nehemiah 12. We want to see what's behind the lists, the organization, the sheer joy of the celebration, and also the practical stuff they set up.
Right. Beyond just the summary, what do these details, the names, the parade routes, the support systems actually reveal about this community trying to rebuild itself?
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? So let's start where the chapter starts, laying the foundation. The people, their roles. It kicks off talking about the priests and Levites who came back earlier with Zerubbabel and Jeshua.
Yeah, the core groups. And it's not just a mention, it lists them out. You get names like Sariah, Jeremiah, Ezra, Amariah. These are the key figures returning.
And it specifies roles almost immediately. It mentions Mattaniah and his associates being in charge of the songs of Thanksgiving.
And others standing opposite them, ready for their part in the services. So
Yeah.
right away, you see structure. It's not just a crowd.
No, definitely not. It's organized. And there's this focus on lineage, too, tracing the priests from Jeshua down through the generations to Jaddua.
That continuity seems really important to them. It crops up again with the heads of the priestly families under Joachim. Mariah leading Saraya's family, for example.
It shows these roles were, well, often hereditary, tied to family lines.
And get this, it specifically mentions that these records, these family heads, were documented during the reign of Darius the Persian and put into the Book of the Annals.
Wow, okay, so this isn't just a casual list Nehemiah jotted down. This is official state record keeping.
Precisely. Which makes you ask why? Why dedicate resources to recording who led which priestly family way back then?
It suggests it's more than just admin, right? It's about legitimacy, connecting their present reality back to their historical roots.
I think so. It's about establishing continuity, proving their connection to the past, maybe grounding their authority. They're basically writing their identity back into the official history.
That makes sense. They're saying, we belong here, this is who we are.
And this orderliness extends to worship, too. The Levites involved in praise, it says they had sections responding to each other, just like King David prescribed.
Following the ancient pattern, it's very intentional.
Definitely. And then you've got the gatekeepers listed too, Mattaniah, Bakukiah, Obadiah. Their job, guarding the storerooms at the gates.
Practical stuff, not just spiritual leadership, but managing the actual resources. And it notes they served through Joachim's time, Nehemiah's time, Ezra's time.
Yeah, showing their function was ongoing and essential. So taking all these lists together, priests, Levites, singers with specific roles, gatekeepers guarding supplies, all meticulously recorded.
What does it tell us? What's the big picture from these details?
I think it shows a community absolutely committed to order, to knowing their heritage, and to making sure every necessary function, spiritual and practical, had someone assigned to it. It wasn't just about building walls. It was about rebuilding a structured society.
So the lists aren't just dry, they're like a blueprint for their whole community structure and values. Identity, history, defined roles, these were foundational.
Exactly. A blueprint for their collective soul, you could say. And with that foundation set, the chapter moves to the real climax.
The dedication of the wall itself.
The payoff moment. And it's described as this huge, joyful celebration.
Not a quiet ribbon-cutting ceremony, then.
Definitely not. They actively sought out the Levites from all over, brought them to Jerusalem, specifically for this joyful event. Music is front and center, Thanksgiving songs, cymbals, harps, lyres.
And it's interesting, you mentioned the Levites coming from outside. The text says the singers were gathered from places like Netophah, Beth Gilgal, Geba, villages around Jerusalem.
Yeah, it notes these singers had actually built settlements for themselves nearby, which tells you something, right?
It does. It suggests the worship, the music was so central that people formed communities nearby just to be part of it. And the dedication drew everyone in, not just the city dwellers.
A regional event. Before the big procession, though, there's this purification step.
Right. The priests and Levites purify themselves first, then the people, the gates, and the wall.
It's a sacred act, setting everything apart, making it holy for this dedication. It's preparing the space and the people for something deeply spiritual.
Okay, then comes the main event, Nehemiah's plan. Two massive choirs.
Two large choirs, yeah. and they're walking on top of the wall.
That's quite a visual. Imagine seeing that.
Incredible. One choir goes right, heading toward the dung gate. The text names leaders like Hoshea, half the leaders of Judah, priests with trumpets,
And it mentions Zechariah, a musician, using instruments prescribed by David, the man of God. Again, that link to
and
tradition.
always reinforcing that connection. And
Mhm.
Ezra the scribe is leading this group. Their route is mapped out past the fountain gate, up the steps near the city of David, ending near the water gate.
Okay, so that's one group. What about the other?
The second choir goes the opposite way, left. Nehemiah himself is following them, along with the other half of the people and leaders.
So he's part of the procession too.
Oh, yeah. They go past the Tower of the Ovens, the Broad Wall, the Gate of Ephraim, lots of landmarks mentioned, finally stopping at the Gate of the Guard.
So you have these two huge groups processing along the entire wall, starting apart and heading toward the temple.
Exactly. They meet up at the house of God, the temple, the choirs, the officials. Everyone gathers there. More priests with trumpets are mentioned.
And then what happens at the temple?
Great sacrifices. And the text is explicit about the mood. Rejoicing because God had given them great joy.
It directly attributes the joy to God.
Absolutely. And it emphasizes how widespread it was. The women and children also rejoiced. It wasn't just the leaders or the men.
And that amazing detail. The sound could be heard far away.
Yeah, that tells you the scale and the intensity of it. So why all this detail? The two choirs, the specific routes, the named instruments, the sacrifices, the joy spreading to women and children, the sound carrying.
It feels like it's meant to underline the sheer significance of the moment. This wasn't just finishing a building project.
Not at all. It was a massive public declaration, reclaiming the city, reaffirming their identity, celebrating their covenant with God in a way everyone could see and hear. The structure of it, the music, the participation, it all reinforces the message.
The joy wasn't just relief, maybe, but a deep sense of divine blessing and restoration being celebrated by the entire community.
I think that's exactly right. It turns the physical act of building into this profound spiritual and social event, a high point for everyone.
A truly defining moment. But, like you said, celebrations end. The chapter doesn't stop at the party.
No, it shifts gears. It gets into the nuts and bolts of sustaining things long term, appointing people to manage storerooms.
Back to practicalities. Okay, so what were these storerooms for?
For the contributions, people brought in first fruits, tithes from the fields outside the towns, the stuff needed to support the temple personnel.
And the text clearly states the purpose: to make sure the priests and Levites received the portions they were due according to the law.
Right, but there's that little phrase again. Judah was pleased with the ministering priests and Levites.
That's important. It wasn't just, okay, we have to do this. It suggests the people genuinely valued their service.
It implies a positive relationship, a sense of appreciation for what the priests, Levites, singers, and gatekeepers were doing: the worship, the purification services, maintaining order. The community saw value and willingly supported it.
It connects back to that idea of everyone having a role and supporting the whole.
And again, it links the system to tradition. Their service followed the commands of David and Solomon. It mentions directors for the singers way back in the time of David and Asaph.
So they're grounding even their financial or logistical systems in historical precedent.
Seems like it. It summarizes the system in Nehemiah's time pretty clearly. All Israel contributed the daily portions for the singers and gatekeepers, and there was a set way to handle the portions for the other Levites and the priests, the descendants of Aaron.
Okay, so why is this focus on storerooms and contributions so crucial right after the big celebration?
Well, I think it shows a really mature understanding of what it takes to rebuild. It's not just about the big moments, the wall, the dedication festival. It's about the daily grind, the ongoing commitment needed to keep the community's heart beating.
The spiritual and social life needs practical fuel to keep running.
Exactly. The wall gave security, the dedication gave that spiritual and emotional affirmation, but this system of contributions, that provided the means for them to actually live out their identity day after day, week after week.
So the insight here is that real community restoration isn't just about milestones. It's about establishing sustainable practices. The fact that all Israel contributed shows a deep collective buy-in.
Yeah, a commitment to maintaining their shared life, supporting those whose roles were essential to it. It shows resilience requires more than just bursts of effort. It needs steady, ongoing support.
So looking back at the whole chapter then, we've gone from these detailed list setting up the structure and identity
Right, the people, the heritage, the role,
to this incredibly vivid, organized, and joyful dedication ceremony on the wall.
a real peak moment, full of symbolism and shared experience.
And finally, to the practical system, ensuring the long-term support for the community's core functions.
It's quite a journey within one chapter. And pulling out these specifics really gives you a richer picture than just saying they dedicated the wall and set up support. You see the how and the why.
You really do. It makes you think, doesn't it? About how this ancient story with all its lists and ritual descriptions and, collection procedures, how it reveals something fundamental about what humans need to build or rebuild a community. That need for structure, yes, but also for that shared, exuberant celebration. And underpinning it all, that practical mutual support.
It's a potent mix. The structure gives order, the celebration gives meaning and unity, and the support system gives endurance.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. What does the emphasis in Nehemiah 12 on music, on knowing your lineage, on having clearly defined roles from gatekeepers to priest, on collective rejoicing, and on organized giving suggest about what truly makes a community last? Maybe it's less about the physical walls and more about these interconnected human elements. Something to chew on.